Right now, in your wallet or your pocket, you're carrying something that changed the course of human civilization. It's not backed by gold. It's not made of precious metal. In fact, the material it's printed on is worth almost nothing. Yet billions of people trust it with their lives, their futures, their dreams. This is the banknote, or the paper money. But here's what they won't tell you in economics class. Paper money was invented by accident. It was rejected as worthless for centuries. And the journey from ancient China to your pocket involves people losing their lives, revolution, and one of the greatest cons in human history. By the end of this video, you'll discover why paper money exists, how it completely transformed society, and the shocking truth about what gives it value. Stay with me. For us to truly understand how and why paper money exists, we need to go back to a time when money was heavy. Literally. For thousands of years, money meant metal. Gold, silver, copper. The value was in the material itself. If you wanted to buy a house, you didn't just need wealth, you needed muscles. A significant purchase could require carrying hundreds of pounds of metal. And if you were a merchant traveling the Silk Road, you became a target. Bandits didn't need to see your gold to know you had it. They could hear your horse struggling under the weight. Then, in 7th century China, during the Song Dynasty, someone had a revolutionary idea. But it wasn't the government. It wasn't the emperor. It was merchants who were simply tired. These merchants started depositing their heavy coins with trusted agents. In return, they received something radical, a piece of paper, a receipt, a promise that they could exchange it back for metal whenever they wanted. These receipts were called fiat, flying money. They were lighter than air compared to metal, and they could fly from city to city without the back-breaking burden. But here's where it gets interesting. Merchants started to realize, why bother converting the receipt back to metal? Why not just trade the receipt itself? By the Song Dynasty in the 11th century, something extraordinary happened. The Chinese government looked at this merchant innovation and saw opportunity. In 1023 AD, the government of Sichuan province issued the world's first official paper money, the Jiaozi. This wasn't a receipt anymore. This was currency, backed by the government's authority. The Jiaozi featured elaborate designs to prevent counterfeiting, complex patterns, multiple colors, and official seals. Sound familiar? It's the same principle used on money today. For the first time in human history, value was separated from physical substance. You could hold wealth that weighed nothing. Trade became faster. Commerce exploded. China's economy grew exponentially. But there was a dark side to this innovation, one that governments quickly discovered. If paper money isn't backed by actual gold or silver in a vault somewhere, what's stopping a government from printing as much as they want? The answer? Nothing. And by the 1450s, China experienced devastating inflation. Paper money became worthless. The experiment collapsed. China abandoned paper money for the next 500 years. The lesson was clear. Paper money only works if people trust it. Break that trust, and it becomes exactly what it is, a useless and worthless piece of paper. Europeans first heard about paper money from travelers like Marco Polo in the 13th century. His accounts described this Chinese innovation with amazement. But Europe wasn't impressed. To European minds, the idea was absurd. Money without intrinsic value? Paper you can't eat, wear, or build with. It violated everything they understood about wealth. It took until 1661 for Europe to try paper money. In Sweden, a banker named Johann Palmstruck faced a unique problem. Sweden's currency was copper, and copper was heavy. Some coins weighed over 40 pounds. Imagine paying for groceries with that. Palmstruck's Stockholm Banco began issuing paper certificates, Europe's first banknotes. For a while, it worked beautifully, until Palmstruck did exactly what the Chinese emperors had done. He printed more paper than he had copper to back it. The bank collapsed. Palmstruck was sentenced to death, later commuted, but the damage was done. Paper money failed in Europe too. Before we continue, I have a special request to make. If you're finding this story as fascinating as I did researching it, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to The Fascinating Origin of Things. We explore the incredible stories behind everyday items you never think twice about. Share this with someone who loves history. Let's spread knowledge together. Now, let's get to the twist you've been waiting for. By the 1770s, the American colonies were at war. The Continental Congress desperately needed to fund an army, but they had no gold, no silver, and no authority to collect taxes. So they did something radical. They printed money backed by nothing but a promise. They called it the Continental. The phrase, "not worth a continental," comes from what happened next. Massive inflation. By the war's end, continental currency was nearly worthless. America learned the hard lesson. When they established the dollar as official currency in 1792, they backed it with gold and silver. Real metal, real value. This worked for over a century, but then came the Civil War. In 1861, facing the same problem as the Revolutionary Congress, Lincoln's government issued Greenbacks, paper money not backed by gold. They printed the backs with green ink to prevent counterfeiting. The name stuck. To this day, we call American money greenbacks. But unlike previous experiments, the greenback survived. Why? Because the United States government promised it could eventually be exchanged for gold. Trust, backed by something real. For generations, currencies around the world operated on the gold standard. Paper money could theoretically be exchanged for actual gold. Until August 15, 1971. President Nixon did something unprecedented. He severed the dollar's connection to gold. Completely. The dollar was now backed by nothing. This is what economists call fiat currency. From the Latin word meaning, "let it be done." Money by decree. Money because the government says so. And here's the shocking truth. Almost every currency on Earth now works this way. The dollar, euro, yen, pound. None are backed by gold, silver, or anything physical. So what gives money value? The answer is beautiful and terrifying in its simplicity. Collective belief. Money works because we all agree it works. It's a shared hallucination, the most successful one in human history. The paper in a $100 bill costs about 15 cents to produce. But we treat it like it's worth $100 because everyone else does. The moment we stop believing, it becomes paper again. That's why governments protect currency so fiercely. Why counterfeiting is among the most serious crimes. Because paper money isn't about paper at all. It's about trust. From Tang Dynasty merchants trying to lighten their load, to empires rising and falling on paper promises, to the dollar in your pocket right now, paper money is humanity's grandest experiment in collective trust. We've moved from trusting the weight of metal to trusting the word of kings, to trusting nothing but each other. And somehow, against all logic, it works. The next time you make a purchase, remember, you're participating in one of civilization's most fragile, most essential agreements. Paper money doesn't have value. We give it value. Together. This is the fascinating origin of things. If you enjoyed this journey through history, Subscribe for more stories about the everyday objects that shaped our world. What should we explore next? Let me know in the comments.